But anyway, also coming up on the show, last week we mentioned that we were in Vanish magazine. If you haven't seen it, please look down on the links below on our Facebook page and you'll find the link to it. We had a lovely article in Vanish magazine, and the editor, CEO, owner, whatever you want to call him, the big boss of bosses, Mr. Paul Romhany, is on the show today. And Paul produces this magazine. It's the biggest subscribership magazine on the planet for magic, and he has got a tremendous insight into the world of magic, and we're going to welcome him to iMagician Live right now. Please say hello to Mr. Paul Romhany. Hi, Paul.
Hey, Jamie, how are you?
I'm good. It's early there.
Well, it's not too bad. It's like, what I know what time is. Well, your show starts at 11 o'clock here, so...
Yeah, but you have
in the afternoon.
But you have a family, don't you? So you don't do the showbiz early thing. I mean, you're probably up at a reasonable hour anyway.
I'm up very early. This morning I was up at 5 working on some things, actually Vanish. And my son's up about 7, and then now my wife and son have gone for a bike ride. So
oh yeah, well we're going to be talking a lot about Vanish in a moment, because I know that that's all consuming for you. But you know, you're known for so much in the magic industry, and I would say it's fair. Like you've won a lot of awards in your time. You know, you've been very well decorated. You've performed a lot for magicians. You've created a lot of product for magicians and advice for magicians. But through all of that, you seem to be known primarily for Vanish magazine, which we'll talk about, and of course this incredible Chaplin act, which I'd like to touch on, and we're going to actually roll some footage, Paul, but maybe you could talk a little bit about the Chaplin act.
Sure. You know, I started performing Charlie Chaplin when I was a young kid, about 8 years old. That's when I really first got hooked in a movie called The Circus, and then I watched The Gold Rush, and ever since then I've been fascinated with Charlie Chaplin. And when I was about 18 or 19, Marvin Roy, Mr. Electric, came to New Zealand and gave a lecture, probably the best lecture I've ever seen. And I might have been the only person in the room who really took his lecture and did something with it. He didn't teach one magic trick, but he showed you how to theme an act. And he just said, find two things, find something that you're really passionate about, and then go with that. And in his lecture, he gave an example of a cookie. So while I liked cookies, I liked Charlie Chaplin more. And then so Chaplin was my hook, and so I had a hook. And then pretty much from then on, from I'm 52, so I've been doing that act now for 30 years.
Oh, but it's a fantastic act, and as you can see at home, we're running some of the clips of it right now, and I encourage you to go online and look up some of Paul's work, because it really is great. And Paul touched on something really important here, which is creating a character and identity. You know, all of the greatest magicians in the world, they have something that ties to them, either their look or their style or what they do, and Paul is a prime example of this, how one idea can take you all over the planet. We want to talk about Vanish magazine a little bit, because this is huge, and you came up with something which was disruptive in an industry that was very crowded. I mean, when you entered and decided to start a magazine, I'm sure you had friends that said you're crazy, it's not going to work, and yet somehow you've managed to build it into, I think it's the biggest now, isn't it? Certainly in terms of readership.
Yeah, and there's reasons why it is. It's free, so but also at the time it was interesting because other magazines were going through Apple and they wouldn't let you have the subscription emails of people who subscribed, and I didn't want that, so I chose a different route, and I waited until there was a platform. In fact, there's 3 platforms that Vanish is on, but a platform where I could get the subscribers. So in my mail list, I think I haven't looked lately, it was 85,000 that I have on my mail list, but I know that it goes out to at least 100,000 readers.
100,000, Paul. I mean, do you even any longer see what a huge number that is for something that's so...
No, I don't even, to be honest, it's over... Yeah, no, not really, not anymore. I don't even look at the numbers anymore. I got sick of it. I'm not a number person. I used to be when it started out, but then I just gave up. Some of the issues are over 300,000 downloads, way beyond that.
That's it's absolutely mind-blowing, you know, like you've created something that has just eclipsed everything else. And also, I mean, you do that because the content is genuinely great. The layout is great, it's pacey, it's an easy read, but it's a fun read. It's everything that a magic magazine should be. You hit the balance just perfectly.
At the end of the day, I tell everybody it's done. I do it for myself because it's current. There's not really a magic magazine out there that can be as current as this. It's funny. It started off as a every 2 months, and over time it's grown. I had one here. So in the old days, it used to be this thick,
Hang on, stop the press, Paul. Is that an actual copy of an online magazine you're holding?
Yeah, it is. They are printed. They are available as printed copies too. So, but this is one of the older ones, and look how thick that is. And so over time, I realised that no, I need to bring it down. So now you've got it at less than 100 pages, and it's so yeah, it's printed as well. It's on-demand printing. People, especially people on the cover. We did this as not the last one, the one before. This isn't the one that you guys are in, but this is it's beautiful quality magazine. It's just and I do all the layout and everything myself. I have obviously
it's fantastic,
wonderful contributors. So,
but when you see something like that and you say, oh, the magazine was too thick to start off with, it's the same as this show. We come out every week trying to think we'll make a 30-minute show, and it never we seem to be happy if we can get it less than an hour at this point. So maybe we should do 2 shows a week. I don't know, maybe we should follow your lead.
well, it was coming out every 6 months, but now I do it monthly. And I just think it's everyone's commented to say it's much better now that it's shorter. I'm more choosy about the articles, obviously. And the nice thing is that it's current. Like the latest edition was all about what you guys are doing, but what people are doing online. So I'm not because it's on-demand printing. I don't have to go 2 months ahead, because otherwise it's just by the time you get a printed magazine, it's old news. It's gone.
Yeah, absolutely. You were telling me yesterday that you also publish one that has just all the tricks in it.
Oh yeah. So the books. So I've published. This is the edition 2. So I've taken all the tricks and some of the essays and put them all into a hardcover book. So this is year 2. I have year 1 on the market. There's a few of those left. They're limited editions. I'm working on year 3. So there's 8 years. So we hope to have 8 books in the collection by the time I finish.
Oh, that's great. What's next for Vanish? I mean, you keep building it. I notice you're now doing awards, which is, I see a lot of people giving awards, but most people unjustifiably. But in the case of Vanish Magazine, with that level of subscriber base and things, I think you should do awards. And I noticed that's a new thing. Is that something you're going to keep up?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, we're going to be doing some new ones in a month or so. It's just to recognise people, not necessarily people that have written or been in the magazine. I do look at those, and a variety of awards that you wouldn't normally see, such as writing awards and things like that. Inspirational magicians. I love inspirational stories. Vanish is all about it. At the end of the day, I want people to read Vanish and be inspired, rather than find out that you've won all these other things, but be inspired, inspire other people. So there's the Inspiration Award. So we'll continue with those.
It's a wonderful thing that you're doing, Paul. It really is. And I've been an avid
same with you
reader
guys. I love what you guys are doing. I think there's so much on my plate. In my mind, I wanted to do something like what you're doing, but it's just I can't do it at all. I'm glad someone else has taken it to that level. You guys have taken what you're doing to another level, so it's great.
You're far too kind. But the thing that surprised me about this show is how much time of the week it takes up. It's incredible. But we have nothing but time. So
and it's the same with Vanish. I mean, it's just I'm up early in the morning till late at night putting these things together. It's and it's the same with your show. I know the work that goes into it. All the money that comes in from advertising, it all goes back into the magazine because it costs me so much. People would be amazed at how much it cost me to keep this thing going. So it's really just a labour of love, and I really do love doing it. And it's also opened up other avenues of getting me into writing and printing and publishing books and things.
Well, I think if I keep this show going, manage to get 100,000 people watching it, then maybe I'll get enough advertising money to buy you, Tommy, and Adam a beer. And I think that might be about the extent of it.
I'll take you up on that.
Paul, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm a huge fan of what you do. We all used to cruise a lot back in the day when there used to be such a thing as cruise ships.
Right.
And hopefully there will be again. But, I loved watching your show. And, I'm a huge fan of Vanish Magazine and everything that you do and what you give back to the art. It's great and something that is going to be around long after you and I have departed. So, Paul, thank you for taking the time today and coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much for having me. I love your show, so keep up the great work. Thanks, Jamie.
You're too kind. Thank you, Paul. Bye.
Cheers.